Back on the record, this is the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys and the prosecutors are present as well. We are outside the presence of the jury. Mr. Brockler, are you ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor, and I was going to ask the court, and I can do it in front of the jury, to permit us to republish that exhibit from the beginning now that we have the sound addressed.
Any objection to that?
Your Honor, I do have an objection with regard to this exhibit. I've just been informed that this exhibit is not actually a reflection of the clips that I was told that they were. The court's aware that those clips were in 3 separate portions, and I've just been informed that it's actually no longer in 3 separate clips, but it's all been strung together. So I think that the clips themselves have now been altered out of their original state, and I don't think that that's something that's clear to the jury, and I think it becomes misleading, so I would object under 403 with regard to, if the court overrules my objection with regard to republishing it, I do not have an objection to that.
All right. First, with respect to the objection, Mr. Brockler, I'll require you to simply clarify for the jury that these are 3 different clips that have been put together, and you can do that through the witness. I'm assuming the witness is aware of that.
I think he is, yes.
All right, will you make sure of that?
I will.
All right, and then without objection, the exhibit may be republished. For the record, only part of it was published because the people stopped the playing of the audio or the video about halfway through, I think. And that's when I ended up taking a break. And the reason why the prosecution paused the videotape is because there was no audio. You could barely hear what was being said. And so given that, I'll allow the prosecution to replay it in its entirety. But I agree with Ms. Higgs that it should be clear that these are 3 separate clips that have been strung together. But to the extent that there is an objection to that, it's overruled. All right? So, you ready to proceed?
Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Is the defense ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring the jury in, please.
Hey, sir. That's all right.
The record should reflect that the jury's back in the courtroom. Please be seated, everyone. Welcome back, folks. Right before the break, Mr. Brockler was in the middle of his direct examination of Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, I will remind you that you are still under oath, okay? All right, and Mr. Brockler, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think we figured out the sound on that video, but before we play it again, what I want to make sure I clarify with you is that the clip that we're about to see is 3 separate segments that have been strung together to piece them into one. Is that what you saw?
Yes.
Okay. With that, Your Honor, I'm going to ask the court's permission to republish Exhibit 1223 into evidence.
That request is granted.
Prost.
The other pertinent topic is microRNA. So what is microRNA? Well, microRNA is roughly 22 nucleotides long, and this is a microRNA exemplar in its precursor form. So this precursor microRNA, in its characteristic hairpin shape, will then be cleaved to its mature form of microRNA, shown in red, by the enzyme dicer, which is a ribonuclease. The microRNA in its mature form will then target a messenger RNA and repress its messenger RNA target from being translated into a protein. of maintaining the mouse embryonic stem cells and going through the first step of the procedure to make neural stem cells. This image shows embryonic stem cells shown in these conglomerates here, growing on a mouse embryonic fibroblast feeder layer, which are these spindles. After changing the media and adding morphogens, the stem cells are then driven to neurospheres, which should express neural stem cells. These neural spheres are aggregates of stem cells, some of which should be neural stem cells. These are representative images of dopaminergic neurons. These PIDX3 GFP positive cells show there were dopaminergic neurons being expressed. PIDX3 is a transcription factor, so it's in the nuclei of the cells. TH is an abbreviation for tyrosine hydroxylase, the rate-limiting step in dopamine synthesis. And it's in the cytosol, so that's why we see a different morphology, because it will spread throughout the neuronal processes of the dopaminergic neurons. And then the merged image.
Thank you. A couple questions to follow up on that, sir. The way that the defendant is dressed in that exhibit, is that pretty much how he dressed all the time?
Yes.
The thing, we can see his right hand moving. Is he holding a remote or a pointer or something as he does his presentation?
Yeah, that was, I believe, a pointer.
Okay. That presentation, and you've seen other rotational talk presentations, is that fair?
Yeah.
How does that one compare to the other ones that you've seen out of first-year neuropsych students?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's just a presentation and just average. It's not really bad. It wasn't really good, you know. So what can I say? Just normal presentation that he did.
That presentation, did it seem to you to be not full of a lot of new data?
Yes. No, I remember at the time he couldn't generate a lot of data, but it's not his fault. I mean, it depends on what kind of project he had at the time. So it's complicated, but all I can say is that he couldn't generate enough data to present his last rotation presentation.
Two final questions for you, sir. One is, during the time that you were with the defendant over the period of time you've described for us in that third rotation, did he ever seem to you to be detached from reality?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation and lay opinion testimony.
Overruled.
Go ahead, sir.
No.
Over the time that you were with him throughout that third rotation, did he ever seem to you to change at all, or was he the same guy at the end that he was at the beginning?
I think he was the same guy. He never changed.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Oop. Forgive me, I think I may have asked this. Someone else thinks I may not have. That presentation that we saw, did that take place in May of 2012?
I don't remember, maybe around there, because this is the last time of the rotation. So, but I don't remember the date. And
Without remembering the specific date, and I appreciate you clarifying that, if someone were to do a presentation at the end of the third rotation in any given year, what month does that typically occur in?
I think it's May, but
Okay.
not really sure.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you so much. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Higgs, cross-examination.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Okay.
With regard to that presentation, the clips that we just watched, I see that totaled about 1 minute and 55 seconds. Is that what you saw as well?
Yes.
That would not be an entire presentation,
No.
correct? An entire presentation would last much longer than that, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And my understanding is you did not see Mr. Holmes give his end of rotation presentations from his previous 2 labs. Is that right?
I didn't see his previous presentation, so I cannot compare it.
Okay. Mr. Holmes came into your lab, I think you said somewhere in March. Is that right?
Yes.
You did not work with him prior to March of 2012.
No.
You did not have any experience with him prior to March of 2012.
No.
After this last rotation presentation that we just saw in May, you did not have further contact with Mr. Holmes. Is that correct?
Oh, I don't remember. I might call him sometime. I don't know. I don't remember. But
Okay.
we, yeah.
You don't recall having any conversation or going out with him after May, after this presentation. Is that right?
After this presentation, I guess we try to go for dinner, something like that. So I might call him and he might call me and to get together, but we didn't.
Okay.
But
And-
I don't really remember.
Right. So you cannot tell the jury of any specific contact that you had with Mr. Holmes after this presentation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the time he was with you in that lab, is it fair to say that Mr. Holmes was never acting angry with you?
No, never.
Never acting mean?
No,
Never even rude? Is that fair?
never.
Okay.
Never.
He never dyed his hair a crazy color, anything like that?
No.
He didn't seem to draw any attention to himself during that time in the lab. Is that fair?
No.
It's not fair, or he
Oh.
didn't do it?
He didn't do it. He
Okay,
didn't do it.
thank you. Now, you've also described Mr. Holmes' time. You've talked a little bit about his demeanor while he was in the lab today, and you called him shy. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. I think you've also called him maybe passive is a good word.
Yes, you can say that.
Okay. You've also described him as not as energetic as others you've seen in the lab.
I mean, it depends on what is the definition of the energetic, Some people is very shy, but could be very energetic inside of his mind. But, so it's hard to say. I mean, I can say that he's a shy guy and a little passive, but about the energetic, I don't know.
Okay. Do you recall speaking with the prosecution and their investigator on March 23rd of this year?
Yes.
And do you recall that what you told them at that time was that he was kind of a shy guy, not active? Is that fair?
That's what I said,
Okay.
yes.
And less energetic?
Oh, okay.
Okay. You've also indicated he had poor presentation skills.
It wasn't really poor presentation, but you know what? It's really difficult to say that to decide the quality of presentation because it depends on the project and depends on the what we got, things like that. So, but his presentation skill was great. Okay, I don't think he's poorly present his data, but he couldn't get a great data during that rotation period.
Do you recall, well, as you've said, you spoke with the prosecution on March 23rd of this year? Is that correct?
March 23rd?
Correct, of this year.
Yeah, but I don't remember the date.
Oh, that's okay.
Right? Yeah.
And you spoke with them on the phone, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think, and what you indicated to them about that presentation was that it was a little short on data and presentation skills. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you've also described in the lab, you felt that Mr. Holmes was, a word you've used is unmotivated. That's how you perceived him.
Yes.
Okay. That he lacked passion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to all of those descriptors of James Holmes, it's fair to say that you don't know why it was that he lacked passion. Is that right?
That's right.
You don't know why it seemed to you that he was unmotivated. Is that right?
Yes.
You don't know why it was that he was a shy person, correct?
Yeah.
You don't know why it was that he was less energetic than other students in the lab, correct?
But what I'm saying is that he is the normal. I feel he's a normal guy. So I don't have any doubt why he doesn't have any energy or why he's so passive, because he's not out of the boundary. If he's so
Mr.
passive.
Lee, I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
My question is, you cannot tell me why it was that Mr. Holmes was less energetic, correct?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Do you have any redirect, Mr. Brockler?
I do, Your Honor, briefly. Sir, a couple things. You were asked a whole lot of things you don't know the answer to about the defendant. Did you know whether or not prior to his presentation in May, he'd been buying things in preparation for a mass murder?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation. It's argumentative and improper.
Overruled.
Other question. Do you remember when Ms. Higgs asked you about whether it was the whole presentation we watched on the video or just about a minute and 50 some odd seconds? You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is it fair to say that the parts that weren't recorded on there but that you watched looked just like the parts that we actually watched on the screen?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Any recross, Ms. Higgs?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, sir.
Is there any objection?
Your Honor, if I can just have a moment.
Yeah.
I don't have any objection.
All right. Sir, thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Nicholas Gallup.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record?
Nicholas Gerald Gallup.
And can you spell your first, middle, and last names?
Yes, Nicholas, Nickelas, Gerald, Gerald, last name Gallup, Gallup.
All right. Before we proceed, members of the jury, there's something I need to take up with one of you, so we're going to take a short break. Please don't go too far. Hopefully it'll be about a 10-minute break, okay? Please make sure you follow all of the advisements I have been giving you throughout the trial during the break. And sir, we'll have you step out for a moment as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has left the courtroom. Now everyone may be seated. The record should also reflect that we are outside the presence of the witness. Juror number 329 submitted a note that reads, "I know this witness." So I propose we bring her in and question her about that. All right, let's bring her in, please. The record should reflect that juror number 329 is now back in the courtroom. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi. I received your note that reads, "I know this witness." And so, do you know witness Nicholas Gerald Gallup?
Yes, sir.
How do you know him?
I went to high school with him.
How long ago was that?
We graduated in 1999.
Have you had any contact with him since you graduated in 1999?
Not that I remember. The only time would have possibly been at our 10-year class reunion.
And that would have been in 2009?
Yes, sir.
Did you have contact with him at the 10-year reunion?
I don't recall, but
So-
that would have been the only time I would have seen him.
So you don't remember having any contact with him since you graduated from high school in 1999, but to the extent that it was possible that you were both in the same room, it would have been in 2009 for your 10-year reunion.
Correct.
But as you sit here right now, you have no recollection of having any contact with him in 2009 during the 10-year reunion.
Correct.
What kind of relationship did you have with him back in high school?
I mean, I knew of him. I don't remember specifics. It was some time ago.
Well, would you describe the relationship as friends, close friends, acquaintances, or just someone that you knew attended your school?
I would probably say more so acquaintances.
Acquaintances? Okay. Have you ever been friends with him?
Not that I would say.
Okay. All right. And how long did you know him in high school? Did you know him for all 3 years of high school or 4 years of high school, or was it for 1 year or less than that? Do you know?
I think he and I were both there all 4 years.
All 4 years? And would you describe the relationship as acquaintanceship throughout the 4 years?
Yes, sir. I mean, we may have had friends that overlapped, but I don't recall. But I couldn't.
So you may have had friends in common, but you two were not friends.
Correct.
Were you friends before or not friends, but did you know him before high school?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Anything about that acquaintanceship from high school that you think would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror in this trial?
No, sir.
Anything about that acquaintanceship that you think would affect your ability to assess his credibility in the same way that you assess the credibility of all other witnesses?
No, sir.
Anything about that acquaintanceship that you think would affect your ability to assess his credibility pursuant to my instructions?
No, sir.
And do you have any concerns at all in terms of having to explain to him the verdict that you reach in this case?
No, sir.
So do you think that if you end up on the jury, that's one of the jurors who deliberates, and I don't know, you don't know which jurors are going to deliberate, but to the extent that you end up deliberating, is that going to be something that is going to influence you or that is going to be on the back of your mind in any way?
No, sir.
All right, let me have you step out. Actually, before you step out, do you have any other concerns?
No, I just, with knowing him, I just needed to make that be known.
I appreciate that. You did the right thing. That's exactly what you should do, and I appreciate you letting me know. But as you sit here, you have no concerns about being a fair and impartial juror in this trial.
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Why don't we have you step out for just a moment, and then we'll come and get you. The record should reflect that juror number 329 has now exited the courtroom. Is there any other record that the prosecution wants me to make, or are there any other questions that the prosecution wants me to ask at all?
No, Your Honor.
Is there any action you're asking me to take?
No, Your Honor.
All right, same questions for the defense. Mr. King, any other questions that you want me to ask or any other record that you want me to make?
No, sir.
Any action that you're asking me to take?
No.
All right, thank you. Let's bring all of the jurors back in, please.
The witness stand, Your Honor.
Yes. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Ms. Tish McGuire, you may proceed with the direct examination of Mr. Gallup.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that go into the early morning hours of July 20th of
Yes, ma'am, sure
2012?
did.
Please tell the jury a little bit about what you remember from the day of July 19th prior to going to the movie theater that day.
Absolutely. Of course, it all seemed to be a normal day starting off. I was at work. I was a manager at a restaurant locally to the theater, and business is normal, and we decided to go to the movie that night, and some friends had already pre-bought some tickets, and the restaurant closed at about 10 o'clock, and we went and grabbed a bite to eat, and then went to the theater.
What did you do when you got to the movie theater?
We were looking for some friends that we were meeting up with. We were in the lobby, and then we decided to go into the auditorium to find our seats, and we went to Auditorium 9.
Where did you go find your seats in Auditorium 9?
Initially, we got there a little bit later, so the theater was packed when we got in there. We were still waiting for a few friends, so we were trying to find 5 seats total together. We were able to locate 3 seats on the very top back row, and then my girlfriend at the time and I were going to occupy 2 seats on the very far side of the theater.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask that Mr. Gallup be permitted to take his microphone and meet me down here if I could move the 3D model.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, did you turn that microphone on?
I believe so, yes.
Great. Okay. All right, Mr. Gallup, if you could I'll let you stand on this side, I think. That would be better.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And if you could show the jury where it was that you first were about to find seats that night.
Okay, we were looking around the theater, and the seats that we found that were most together were up at the top row here. They were the seats starting at the first seat closest to the wall and going over to the 5th seat. The there was a couple about in the middle of the row there that we found. My girlfriend and I were able to locate 2 empty seats on the side here, and it was pretty evident that we were trying to find 5 seats together. We spoke with those people there, and they were generous enough to actually move and exchange for the 2 open seats for my girlfriend and I here, so we could join our friends on the top row, and we proceeded to have 5 seats together. There was 2 of my coworkers here, myself, my girlfriend, and another friend or coworker there. And then we proceeded to watch the previews.
So just to be clear, so the record can reflect this, your seats were at the very last row of the theater, right in front of the stairs, so you had a very clear view of
Absolutely,
what happened
that's correct.
in the theater. All right. If you could please tell the jury what happened during the movie that night.
Sure thing. After the preview started, it was a little ways into the movie. Actually, the last scene that I remember is when Catwoman jumped out of the window with the pearls. Right about that time, I witnessed just a sound and a really loud hissing noise coming from the emergency exit. I think it's this represented on the model. And it flew over the auditorium into this area here. I, of course, didn't see exactly where it landed. And after the gas can, or the hissing and the smoke, it sounded like a pack of black cats. Again, it sounded like it was a prank going on.
Now, what are black cats?
Black cats are fireworks. They're explosive, very small explosive fireworks.
Right. What do you recall after hearing that noise?
I certainly recall seeing sparks and the muzzle flashes from that area, and I quickly realized that it was small arms fire, and it was very rapid as well.
Could you see a figure of a shooter?
I could see a silhouette, but that's all it was. I couldn't see any detail at that point.
So after you realize that this is actually gunfire, what do you do at that point?
At that point, the 2 friends that were on my right got down behind the seats in front of them. My girlfriend at the time couldn't get down on the ground, so she laid down in the seat to her left. I proceeded to get out of my seat, get on my knees in front of her, facing the auditorium with my arms behind me, shielding her. And our friend to the left of her had left at some point in that time. I don't exactly recall her seeing her when she left.
Could you still hear gunfire while you were getting down in that position?
Absolutely. I witnessed the whole thing, and I saw the rounds from the small arms fire, and then it was a lot louder and more of a distinct boom, which was the result from the shotgun.
Objection to foundation.
Sustained.
Mr. Gallup, do you have experience with firearms?
Absolutely. I have fired small arms as well as shotguns, as well as high-powered rifles.
All right. Miss, were you able to discern distinct firearm sounds in the theater that night?
Absolutely.
And is that based on your experience with firearms?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
All right. So what did you hear that night in the theater?
Small arms fire in a location like that is going to sound a lot like black cats. It's a really distinctive pop to it. Shotgun has more of a distinct boom or pow to it. And then the high-powered rifle is kind of somewhere in the middle, but it's very pronounced, very deep as well. And I was able to definitely tell that there were different weapons used.
Were you able to see the shooter with the shotgun?
I was able to see the shooter with a shotgun, yes.
All right. Please tell the jury what you noticed the shooter doing with the shotgun.
Absolutely. I noticed, starting off after the small arms fire, after the handgun, the shooter did go to the shotgun and was targeting the majority of
Object to the characterization as speculation, going to the state of mind of the alleged shooter.
You're not allowed to speculate about what someone else was thinking. You can testify about your observation. So limit your testimony to what you observed, to what you saw, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Okay.
With that, you may proceed.
Thank you. So I witnessed the shooter with a shotgun firing off multiple rounds into the seats, and I witnessed actually folks getting shot and targeted and shot.
Objection
from what
to
it
the
looked like.
characterization of targeted.
Sustained.
So, Mr. Gallup, what area of the theater did you see the shooter using the shotgun in?
I saw the shooter using around the emergency exit with the weapons.
And where was the shotgun pointed in the theater when you saw the shooter with the shotgun?
It was pointed in multiple directions, but majorly in the same direction as the canister was thrown to.
Did you have a chance to see the shooter with the rifle?
Yes, I did.
All right. Where was the shooter when the shooter was using the rifle?
Roughly in the same spot in the area by the emergency
And
exit.
just to be clear, are we talking about this area?
Yes.
The record could reflect it's the area that's closest to the right aisle of the theater, closest to that exit towards the screen at the beginning of at the front of the movie theater.
Okay.
Now, where did you see the shooter pointing the rifle that night?
Now, I witnessed the shooter pointing the rifle at first in the direction towards the exit here, and then I also witnessed from what I saw, the muzzle flashes going up into the seats as well in kind of an upward motion.
Did you see the shooter specifically shoot people?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
To speculation and state of mind.
The question was, did you see the shooter shoot people? That doesn't call for speculation. Overruled.
Please tell the jury about your observations of exactly what people you saw the defendant shoot that night.
In my observations that night, I did see when folks were getting up to run away that they were being impacted or being shot by the weapons described.
Do you specifically recall a woman standing up and her being shot?
Absolutely. I do recall a woman in the area lower on the stadium seating here getting up to run away and getting shot actually in the back.
Do you recall people fleeing and those people being shot?
Absolutely. Once everything was kind of midway through it, it was just a stampede, and there were folks who were trying to exit in a panic, and there was a lot of commotion.
Were you able to hear the rate of fire from the rifle that night?
Absolutely. The rate of
Objection. If the witness is finished with the demonstrative exhibit, I'd ask that he be allowed to take his seat.
Mr. McGuire?
I just need him for probably about 2 more minutes up here, Your Honor.
Okay, overruled.
If you could tell the jury about what you heard from the rifle that night, what rate of fire?
Absolutely. It was a very rapid rate of fire, but it was not. I'm, again, familiar with high-powered rifles, and it was not a fully automatic weapon
Judge,
or
I'm going to
wasn't
object to this
used.
testimony as beyond the scope of his personal knowledge
Uh,
and
I-
relevance to this.
I'm not sure he was responsive to the question. Ask the question again and make sure you answer the question that she's asking you. All
Yes,
right?
sir.
Sure. So if you could do me a favor, if you could kind of tap out on this board what sort of rate of fire you heard from the rifle.
Absolutely. It was pretty rapid.
You would describe that, how would you describe that?
As a semi-automatic, rapid rate of fire.
So while you're hearing all this different gunfire in the theater, are you still knelt in front of your girlfriend shielding her?
Yes, I am.
All right. And what do you recall doing after that?
While shielding my girlfriend there, I witnessed as the high-powered rifle was being shot that the muzzle flashes were getting brighter, and I then felt a burning sensation on the side of my head.
Had you been shot at that point?
Yes, I did tell everyone that I was with that I'm hit. And at that point, I was able to then get down on the ground. And I had a shirt on that I took off and actually put over my wound to control the bleeding at the time.
What do you recall happening in the theater after that?
After that, I was just waiting for the shooting to stop. I figured the shooter either had to run out of ammunition or leave. And after I heard the shooting stop, I told my friends, let's get the fuck up, stay low, and follow me. We then proceeded all the way across the top road to the emergency exit.
And did you take that out towards the front lobby?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Galby. You can take your seat.
Thank you.
Did you ever notice a green laser in the theater that night?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Absolutely. By the time we got to the emergency exit, about halfway through that through the top row, I will never forget seeing that green laser flying around the auditorium. Because it was smoky in there, it wasn't just the point, it was the entire laser beam.
And are you familiar with that as a laser beam on a firearm?
Yes.
What happened when you got outside the theater lobby?
We went down the we went down the stairs into the lobby, and it was mass hysteria out there.
I'm going to
There was
interject an objection to 403. What happened outside the lobby is not relevant, and it's cumulative to other testimony.
Sustained.
Mr. Gallup, did you sustain any injuries as a result of being shot on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, I did actually have shrapnel lodged superficially on my left temple.
Right, and were they initially able to remove that?
Not initially. I actually controlled my bleeding and assessed my own injuries and wounds, and I did not go to the hospital until a week later. The carnage that I witnessed and the people that I saw needed more.
Sustained. Just answer the question, sir. Okay.
So-
All right, Mr. McGuire, ask your
So
next
initially,
question.
why would they not remove the shrapnel from your brain?
I was informed that there was a risk.
Object to the characterization. That wasn't what the witness testified to, and it's hearsay.
Sustained.
Please tell a jury about what injuries you sustained.
Absolutely. I received shrapnel in my left temple.
If I could approach the witness, Your Honor, with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 4529, 4530, and 1126.
Yes.
Do you recognize the person in those photographs?
Absolutely.
Do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the injuries you sustained on July 20th of 2012?
Absolutely.
Right. And, Your Honor, at this time I would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 4529 and 4530.
Is there any objection?
I do not object to the photographs.
All right, so without objection, P-TR-4529 and 4530 are admitted and may be published.
Thank you. If I could please have 4529. All right, if I can approach the witness, Your Honor, and retrieve the... Thanks.
Yes.
Is that the shrapnel that went through your head?
That is the location of where the shrapnel entered, yes.
Can you tell the jury where it went in your head, please?
It was superficial. It did not penetrate my skull. It was just underneath the skin on my left temple.
All right. If I could please have 4530. Okay. Could you tell the jury what this picture depicts?
Absolutely. This is just after the shrapnel was surgically removed. That is the sutures after the surgery.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Gallup, do you recognize the diagram in front of you that is labeled as 1126?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that fairly and accurately represent what you recall happening in the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time I've moved for the admission of People's Exhibits 1126, although I'm not asking to publish.
Any objection to P-TR-1126?
Yes, Your Honor. It's cumulative to the testimony.
All right, can I see that, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, the objection is sustained under Rule 403. So,
Thank
we
you,
can
Your
mark
Honor.
it later. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Tish McGuire?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
No.
The jury may have a question. Give us a moment, please, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would counsel please approach? Sir, the jury has submitted a question which, based on the rules of evidence and other applicable rules of law, I have determined is appropriate. The question is, did you see the shooter move from that right front corner during the shooting periods?
From the angle that I was at, it wasn't clear that the shooter did move. I just witnessed the shooter in the area just by the emergency exit. By the time I was shot, I was down on the ground and did not witness anything further as far as movement.
Any follow-up questions, Ms. Tisch-McGuire?
No, Your Honor.
Any follow-up questions, Ms. Spengler?
No.
May this witness be released from his subpoena.
Please, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tisch-McGuire, you
Thank you, Your
want
Honor.
to retreat that? Thank you. All right, members of the jury, it's 5 minutes till 5, so I think it makes sense to adjourn for the day. Quickly, I want to remind you about all the advisements that I've been giving you. Please don't discuss the case with each other through any means. You're free to talk about anything else, but not about the case. Please do not discuss the case with anyone else. All you may tell people is that you're on a jury and that we expect that the trial will go through August or September. Please don't talk to any witnesses, parties, or attorneys about anything, whether related to the case or not. Please don't talk to any members of the media about anything, whether related to the case or not. Please wear your juror badges at all time and make sure they're visible to everyone around you. And please avoid people talking about the case in your presence. If people happen to be talking about the case in your presence, please remove yourself from that location immediately. And then if you happen to overhear something, even despite your best efforts not to do so, please tell my staff that you need to talk to me about something. Please do not read, view, or listen to any news or media reports about the case. There is media coverage about this trial, so please be vigilant while listening to the radio, watching TV, reading the newspaper, or using the internet. Please do not visit any locations that are mentioned in the case or conduct your own investigation outside the courtroom. Please do not start forming any opinions about the case until I tell you that you may start deliberating. You must keep an open mind throughout the trial. Please keep in mind that neither sympathy nor prejudice for the prosecution or the defendant may affect any of your decisions in this case. And finally, please remember that the attorneys have a job to do, and sometimes that job requires them to make objections. Please don't hold it against them when they do. And please don't infer anything from my rulings. I'm simply trying to apply the rules of law, including the rules of evidence, to the best of my ability. All right, with those summarized advisements, I hope you have a great evening. I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning at the usual time at 8:15, okay? Thank you, folks. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Everyone may be seated. Should we mark the note from Juror 309 that reads, "I know this witness" as a court trial exhibit? Anybody object to that? No. All right, we'll mark it as a court trial exhibit. I'm not seeing any disagreement from anyone. I don't think it makes sense to mark it as a juror question because it wasn't submitted in a juror question form, and I want to avoid any confusion. I think we've been consistent in marking the juror question forms numerically, regardless of whether it's a question for a witness or sometimes a question for me, but in this case, it's just a blank page from a notebook and not it's not one of the juror question forms. So we'll just mark it as a court trial exhibit. What's the next court trial exhibit number?
35, but I believe I gave that.
Oh, okay. So, Mr. Edson, did you already use 35?
I did, sir, and I placed it with the court reporter.
All right, we'll mark it as 36. And then, Ms. Tish McGuire, do you want to mark P-TR-1126 as 37, C-TR-37? All right. Anything we need to talk about at this time on behalf of the people?
Beginning of the case, you had asked us to estimate the amount of space that was going to be needed for the physical evidence, and so I don't know what issues it's creating for court staff, but I want to let the court know, I think we're pretty much, we'll have a few more pieces, but the space that you're using now, I think, is the space that you're going to need.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. We have plenty of space, so that's not a concern. Thank you. All right, anything on behalf of the defense at this time, Mr. King?
No, thank you.
All right. Have a good evening. I'll see you tomorrow morning. The court will be in recess. Thank you.